The fourth Amazon Summit is underway in Brazil, as heads of state will discuss strategies to preserve the common rainforest territory. A forest fire in Portugal has consumed an area of at least 7,000 hectares and injured at least 11 people, according to local authorities. And the Israeli occupation forces have detained 13 Palestinians during a large-scale detention campaign in the town of Kubar, to the northwest of Ramallah city. Hello from the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba. This is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. On Tuesday, heads of state and high officials of South American nations arrived in Belém, the capital of the Brazilian state of Pará, to take part in the fourth Amazon Summit. The heads of state meeting of the Amazon Summit, which began on August the 4th and was attended by delegations representing the 8 countries that share the Amazon, is underway on Tuesday. For 2 days, governors and environment ministers will meet to strengthen environmental protection mechanisms and halt deforestation in the Amazon by 2030. The high-level meeting was preceded by a civil society gathering on Monday that had the attendance of 300 civil society organizations. The working meetings will seek to help develop sustainable development policies for the countries of the region, independent of governments, and will monitor the impact of climate change on the Amazon rainforest and the ecosystem. And in this context, Venezuelan and Brazilian officials held bilateral meetings within the framework of the Amazon Summit. Brazil's Minister of Science and Technology, Luciana Santos, received Venezuela's Minister and Vice President of Science and Technology, Gabriela Jimenez, at the Federal University of Pará in northern Brazil. The agenda included the articulation of bilateral projects between the countries with a focus on the Amazon. And the popular movements of the international Via Campesina held an assembly of the Amazon peoples in Brazil to define the proposals for the preservation of the ecozone to be presented at the Amazon Summit. The assembly seeks to articulate organizations in the face of the Amazon Summit, which will begin this Tuesday with the participation of the 8 countries that make up the Amazon rainforest. The peasants' meeting takes place one day after the Amazon Dialogues, which gathered around 27,000 people during 3 days of debates to formulate proposals that will be delivered at the next meeting of the heads of state. Leaders of several nations have already expressed their satisfaction for the summit and affirmed that it will serve to build a process that can be carried out until the next United Nations Climate Change Conference in 2025.
We are building this assembly with the political efforts of our organizations so that we can build a process that goes from today until the COP30 in 2025, so that we can ensure an effective participation of society, so that farmers have a space for dialogue, for listening, and that their guidelines can also enter into the framework of the fight against climate change.
It is really quite exciting. The joy is contagious, and we hope to produce that spirit, the experience that we have here with our Peruvian social movement.
In other topics, President Gustavo Petro leads the celebrations for the 204th anniversary of the Boyaca's battle, an event that sealed the liberation campaign and independent spirit of Colombia. During the event, the heads of state paid tribute to the fallen soldiers in that heroic action, while thanking the active military forces that participated in the ceremony for protecting the rights of the people and opening the possibility of a total peace. He also stressed the demand for the new approach to the search of agreements instead of increasing violence. In his speech, the head of state made a review of his presidential administration, where he considered the social achievements in terms of environmental, security, and economic reforms and the peace dialogues as steps towards social inclusion for the new Colombia.
Social justice is a polar star that guides us. Social justice is the basis for peace, just as social inequality is the undeniable source of violence. Social justice is the basis for protecting life in Colombia. If we do not address the very causes of inequality, if we do not face poverty and hunger, if we do not give education to young people, if we do not take care of the elderly, and guarantee them a livelihood, if we do not give dignity to the mother and the small child, change will simply be an empty word.
Gustavo Petro, president of Colombia, stressed the importance of peace dialogues in the country, as well as the participation of civil society and the international community.
Therefore, we're talking with the armed groups to look for ways out, to save lives. We have a dialogue table with the ELN that has already allowed us to reach a historic and unprecedented bilateral ceasefire. But more than that, it should be a suspension of hostilities against the civilian population. Peace is not a negotiation between armed groups. It is a reality where the unarmed society must participate. This effort has even been supported by the United Nations, which has extended the verification mission's mandate operating in Colombia. This means the support of the world to peace in Colombia.
And for his part, Bolivia's President Luis Arce Catacora highlighted his government's achievements during the commemoration of the 198th anniversary of the nation's armed forces and stressed its priority in serving the people. The event took place in the department of Tarija, where the head of state highlighted the work of the Bolivian people as creator of wealth. Arce also pointed out that his government seeks to prioritize the most vulnerable sectors of the country by redistributing its resources. The Bolivian president emphasized the work of the armed forces and the use of its knowledge to fight against smuggling and reiterated that now it does not go out to repress the Colombian people.
Today our soldiers have returned to the barracks and are no longer forced to patrol the streets chasing their own people. Today our soldiers use their skills and knowledge to fight against smuggling, to deal with situations of risk and disaster, and to promote the integral development of our country. Today is an example of civility, of dedication and inspiration for young soldiers who want to follow in their footsteps every year by entering the three forces' different schools.
In other topics in Guatemala, the party's National Unity of Hope and the Semilla movement spread their government proposals or showcased their government proposals on the second electoral round next August the 20th. Only 14 days before the presidential runoff in Guatemala, the candidates in the political race participated in a space intended to debate the proposals of their respective administrations. Sociologist Bernardo Arevalo of the Progressive Party proposes for his first 100 days to fight corruption and strengthen the national police, while the former First Lady Sandra Torres of the United Party reaffirms that for her government she will implement the Solidarity Bag, open schools and social lunchrooms. Thousands of Haitians demonstrated in the streets of Port-au-Prince on Monday to protest against the insecurity situation. They denounced that armed gangs forced thousands of people to move from their homes. The crowd unanimously demanded protection measures against the actions of the gangs, which they denounce are forcing them to become internal refugees. The demonstrators also criticized the authorities' inaction and, along the route, threw stones at institutions and raised barricades. From January to March in Haiti, over 1,600 people have been killed, injured, or kidnapped, nearly a 30% increase compared to last 3 months of 2022, according to the latest UN report. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find the news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Ecuador, Diana Atamant, the president of the National Electoral Council, the CNE, claimed that members of the electoral body have received threats against their integrity. During a press conference, the executive revealed that among those affected will be several electoral councillors. So the case has already been reported to the Attorney General's office to initiate investigations. Adamant declared that the threats have come especially through WhatsApp messages, and at the same time calling the people to remain calm in view of the upcoming elections of August the 20th. In addition, the president of the electoral body reiterated that although she has not received direct threats against herself, she has been victim of political violence through social networks by anonymous people, but also by unidentified individuals.
We have had aggression of the type characterized political violence by people who do not identify themselves and even by people who do identify themselves. Personally, I have not received death threats myself. I hope this does not happen, but I cannot say the same for other board members who have received them.
In the United States, 3 people have died after helicopters crashed while fighting a fire in Southern California. California fire officials said one of the helicopters landed safely, but the second crashed, killing the crew. Among the injured were 2 firefighters, a division chief and a captain, as well as contract pilot. The incident comes 11 months after another firefighting helicopter collision east of Los Angeles injured 3 people. In Bangladesh, the government has announced a new spike in dengue fever cases with 14 deaths in the last 24 hours. According to local media, the number of cases registered as of Monday is 69,483. The figure marks a sharp increase in the number of dengue episodes recorded, surpassing the 62,382 cases recorded in 2022. In addition, the number of deaths has reached 281, the highest ever recorded in the country. The Ministry of Health has urged local authorities to implement the national plan to eliminate the mosquitoes that transmit the disease and prevent its spread. We move on to other topics. A forest fire in Portugal has consumed an area of at least 7,000 hectares and injured at least 11 people, according to the commander of the Regional Emergency and Civil Protection Authority of the Alentejo region. Some 2,000 firefighters are working to control the flames that are affecting the areas around the cities of Orem and Odemira in the center and south of the country. So far, the fires have caused the evacuation of about 100 people and 2 minor injuries, according to the security forces, who are still investigating the causes. The fires are occurring at the temperatures in the 40s and are expected to increase in the coming days due to the third heat wave facing the peninsula. In Cyprus, the flames of the biggest forest fire of the year in the region of Lazza have been rekindled. The blaze comes after the hottest month on record on this Mediterranean island, with 17 days of temperatures over 40 degrees Celsius. Lebanon, Greece, and Jordan sent planes to kill the flames that have already devastated more than 1,000 hectares of mountainous terrain. Due to the strong winds, the fire crews assured that they will remain on the scene for as long as necessary to counteract any outbreak. In Turkey, a blast hit the site of 13 grain silos in the Derin's port, leaving 12 people injured, while adjacent buildings also sustained damage. It is presumed that the compression of wheat dust during the transfer of wheat from a ship to the silos may have caused the explosion, which occurred early in the afternoon. An inquiry is underway to clarify the incident. Local authorities said the health, search and rescue teams and the fire brigades were quickly dispatched to the area. The injured people have been transferred to nearby hospitals, and the Ministry of Transportation said no ships were damaged due to the explosion. We have a second short break coming up, but before, we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English. There you will be able to re-watch our interviews, the top stories, the special broadcastings and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. We have a final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Israeli occupation forces on Tuesday detained 13 Palestinians, mostly ex-prisoners, during a large-scale detention campaign in town of Kobar, to the northwest of Ramallah city. Shad al-Barghouti, head of Kobar municipality, reported to the local media, Wafa, that a large unit of Israeli soldiers broke into the town, and he confirmed they detained 13 Palestinians. Following the intense raid, intense confrontation broke out between the Jews and the Israeli soldiers during the occupation forces fired tear gas bombs at youths, added al-Barghouti. This new Israeli incursion comes after the settlers' attempts to establish a settlement outpost in the Al-Batin area in the southern side of Kobar. The Israeli occupation issued a military decision to seize the area in 1985, but their settlers were unable to settle there. In other topics, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, convened a new summit in Nigeria to evaluate the situation in Niger as the first ultimatum to reinstate President Bazoum expired. Nigerian President and temporary ECOWAS President Bola Tinubu convened the meeting to take place in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. According to a statement from the bloc's leaders, the members will evaluate and discuss the political situation and recent developments in Niger. While countries such as Nigeria, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal expressed their willingness to intervene in Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso reaffirmed their support for that nation. The two countries sent a joint official delegation to the Nigerian capital with the aim of demonstrating the solidarity with the brotherhood people of Niger. Also, meanwhile, Niger's military junta closed its airspace after denouncing foreign powers of being preparing an intervention. The measure comes after ECOWAS declared an ultimatum from the reinstatement of the deposed President Mohamed Bazoum. The spokesperson of the National Council for the Safeguarding of the Country, Colonel Amadou Adraman, called for the Nigerian people to be on alert to defend the homeland. The junta leaders used the measure as a precaution against the constant threats of intervention by foreign powers. ECOWAS declared an ultimatum a few days ago and threatened to intervene in Niger if its demands were not met, but it did not carry out the action.
In view of the threat of intervention by a neighboring country, the airspace of Niger is closed to all aircraft as of today, Sunday, August 6, 2023, until further notice. Any attempt to violate national airspace will be met with a vigorous and instantaneous response. Signed in Niamey on 6 August 2023 by the President of the National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland.
The spokesperson for Niger's military junta, Colonel Amadou Adraman, warns that any foreign intervention will have consequences and that the Nigerian people are ready to defend the integrity of the national territory.
Venha até mim aqui, por favor. Por favor. Venha até mim aqui, por favor. Posso arredar o sozinho? Melhorou aí, galera. Vou começar, ok? Ok. Vem mais para trás, por favor.
United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres supports ECOWAS intervention in Niger's crisis. Guterres expressed his concern over the political crisis in Niger while reiterating his support to the Economic Community of African States. Guterres affirmed that he is genuinely concerned about the arrest of Mohamed Bazoum, the president. As a result, the new authorities in Niger denounced plans for a foreign intervention against their country, for which they will use a neighboring nation. And the voters in the Central African Republic overwhelmingly approved a draft constitution that paves the way for Faustin Archange Touadéra to seek a third term as president. National Electoral Authority President Mathias Moruba informed that the draft was approved in the July 30th referendum with 95.27% of the ballots in favor and 4.73% against, with a turnout of 61.10%. The poll's results must be ratified by the the Constitutional Court, which is scheduled to publish the definite outcome on August 27th. The new constitution will extend the presidential mandate from 5 to 7 years and abolish the two-term limit. One of the poorest and most troubled countries in the world, the landlocked nation has been gripped by conflict and political turmoil for most of its history after independence from France in 1960.
Considering what has been said above, the draft constitution of the Central African Republic, submitted to referendum, received an absolute majority of votes with 1,064,729 votes, namely 95.27%. Article 3. This decision, which is effective from the date of signature, will be published wherever necessary.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.